Hello everyone, welcome to the video of today. This is Beyond the Truth. Today we are going to be talking about why Australia is called Australia. How many of you know, or have you ever wondered why Australia is called Australia? I hadn't. Australia was Australia, and I never thought about it at all, about the name I mean. Until I stumbled across a fascinating story about the great southern continent. It is a story of conviction without any evidence at all. People believed it just because it had to be that way. Let's get into it. The very name Australis just means southern. Up until the 20th century, maps bore the names America Australis and America Septentrionalis, South America and North America respectively, ever since Roman times, where people already knew that the world is not flat. Take that, you flat earthers. Philosophers believed that there had to be a giant landmass in the southern hemisphere just because there was a huge landmass in the northern. And logic implied that in order to be balanced, there had to be one down there too, in close, or if not exact size. As Mercator put it, demonstrated and proved by solid reasons and arguments to yield in its geometric proportions, size and weight and importance to neither of the other two, nor possibly to be lesser or smaller. Otherwise, the constitution of the world could not hold together at its center. Shame that we stop talking like this. What this means is that if there isn't a counterweight on the other side, down under, the earth would not be able to rotate. It would be wobbly and stuff. Ptolemy, 2nd century AD, believed that the Indian Ocean was enclosed on the south by land, and that the lands of the northern hemisphere should be balanced by land in the south. Legends of Terra Australis Incognita, an unknown land of the south, were commonplace in medieval geography, although not based on any documented knowledge of the continent. Ptolemy's maps, which became well known in Europe during the Renaissance, did not actually depict such a continent, but they did show an Africa which had no southern oceanic boundary, and which therefore might extend all the way to the South Pole, and also raised the possibility that the Indian Ocean was entirely enclosed by land. Christian thinkers did not discount the idea that there might be land beyond the southern seas, but the issue of whether it could be inhabited was controversial. With the age of discovery from the late 15th century on, expeditions showed that Africa was entirely surrounded by sea and that the Indian Ocean was accessible from both west and east. These discoveries significantly reduced the area where the continent could be, but still, many cartographers kept believing. Scientists such as Gerardus Mercator, 1569, the guy whose worldview we still use to this day, and Alexander Dalrymple, as late as 1767, argued for its existence, with such arguments as that there should be a large landmass in the south as a counterweight to the known landmasses in the northern hemisphere. As new lands were discovered, they were often assumed to be parts of the hypothetical continent. When the land that we call Australia today was discovered by the Dutch, they didn't confuse it with the great unknown land. Maybe it's because they landed on the western coast in the desert and just couldn't believe that the fabled land was an unhospitable wasteland. So they just called it New Holland. Yes, it was not the British that discovered it. It was in fact the Dutch East India Company, which was the biggest company of all time. But that didn't stop the British from taking it over. You might recall New Amsterdam, which became New York. Down under, they didn't even bother to change the name. They just kept calling it New Holland, and they never got around to changing the Dutch name of New Zealand. The Old Zealand being in Holland, by the way, which also the Dutch discovered. The name Australia was popularized by the explorer Matthew Flinders, who pushed for it to be formally adopted as early as 1804. When preparing his manuscript and charts for his 1814 A Voyage to Terra Australis, he was persuaded by his patron, Sir Joseph Banks, to use the term Terra Australis, as this was the most familiar name to the public. Flinders did so and published the following rationale: there is no probability that any other detached body of land of nearly equal extent will ever be found in a more southern latitude. The name Terra Australis will therefore remain descriptive of the geographical importance of this country and of its situation on the globe. It has antiquity to recommend it, and having no reference to either of the two claiming nations, appears to be less objectionable than any other which could have been selected. The first time that the name Australia appears to have been officially used was in a dispatch to Lord Bathurst on the 4th of April 1817, in which Governor Lachlan Macquarie acknowledges the receipt of Captain Flinders, charge of Australia. On 12th of December 1817, Macquarie recommended to the Colonial Office that it to be formally adopted. In 1824, the Admiralty agreed that the continent should be known officially as Australia. Just as people were getting used to calling Australia Australia, a great southern continent was indeed discovered. That's irony for you. But what was done was done. We already had an Australia, and this new land had to be called something else. In an unprecedented occurrence, nobody seemed able to come up with a name for this new land for like a decade. Eventually, they settled on the very unimaginative Antarctic as an opposite of the Arctic. I bet they had a nice little giggle when they came up with that one. Like, get it? It is the South Pole on the other side from the north, which we already call Arctic. But anyway, so came Antarctica. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Tell us what you think. Stay safe and have a good day.